What's up, guys? Ethan here at the Hookup Tackle. I am here with my buddy Jeff today. Me and him went out the other day and did some early fall fishing, fishing with Blitz Crankbaits. Just wanted to come here in the shop today and talk with you guys about how our day went.
Welcome to the Hookup Tackle.
Oh, what a stud.
Yeah. Look at that.
That was sick.
Woo!
Cheers, my friends. Happy Sunday.
All right, guys, some breaking
This is
news.
what's this week at the Hookup Tackle.
What a beautiful post-spawn fish.
Look at that.
Look at that grit on that. That's a nice fish.
Alright guys, we started the morning with one of my favorite crankbaits, which is going to be the Blitz Max DR. Fished two different colors, fished the chartreuse Wagasaki and I believe it was the vanilla chartreuse. We started the morning earlier in the shallow waters, or shallower waters, fishing this guy in about 10 feet of water. I think with the weather cooling down, those fish are starting to pull up and they're heading towards the bank. And I think that this guy here is one of the most effective ways to try and catch those fish. The bait's pulling up, and so the fish are heading towards the bank. And this guy is really great at deflecting cover and rocks. So yeah.
So when we were out there, first thing in the morning, we tried a buzzbait, we tried a
did.
skipper,
We did.
and they just were not eating it.
No.
We weren't really seeing a whole lot of bait on the bank, and it seemed like we were seeing a lot of it more in that deeper water, not deeper, but like 6 to like 12 foot.
Yeah,
and that's when you
absolutely.
tied on that crankbait, and it seemed to be getting bites right away. And we're like, all right, the shad for whatever reason aren't on the banks, so we have to go slightly a bit deeper. And I feel like a lot of guys, when they think of fall, it's always on the bank, and they kind of put away their medium diving to deep diving crankbaits because they think, oh, fall, that means shad are always up on the bank and the fish are gonna be there. Sometimes, as we saw yesterday, they just weren't.
Yeah.
They were still pulled off a bit.
Yeah.
So that Blitz Max DR was getting to the right depth and getting us those early morning bites.
Absolutely. Yeah, we started in the morning trying to throw a skinny dipper and a
Right.
buzzbait,
Yep.
which was our original plan to go out and do that. But like you said, the shad had pulled off the bank. You know, I think that I even saw some bait schools in like 15 to 20.
Right. Yeah.
So trying to make that key adjustment to go and catch them, you know, was huge.
Oh yeah. Especially.
And it definitely, like you said, a traditional fall pattern is going to be going to the bank
Mhm.
and fishing power style, but you know,
Sometimes
having
it doesn't work
yeah,
out.
right. Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
a few days prior, yeah,
Yep.
they're all falling on
Right.
the bank, and then next few days it's like, all right, where do they go?
Yeah,
oh, they're way off
I
the
definitely
bank.
told you how amazing it
Yeah.
was in 6 inches of water catching fish on buzzbaits.
They're here in the bank.
Right.
And it was not like that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
At least the crankbait bite was there.
Yeah, I mean that was a fun bite for us to go out and go do, to try and showcase a couple of baits, especially these guys. These guys are my favorite,
Yeah.
absolute favorite.
Mhm. So, color-wise, does it matter for you this time of year?
I don't think it's the time of year for us specifically, or for me specifically. I think it was more water clarity.
Oh, got
so
it. Got it.
the place we were at, Lake Pleasant, is known to have very clear water,
Mhm.
but the places that we were fishing had a little more stained water.
Yeah.
And when I say stained, I'm talking like 5-foot visibility,
yeah.
not 6 inches. So I think having a little bit of the brighter color, like this vanilla chartreuse here,
Mhm.
which is actually my favorite color.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a key. It is.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Now, what was the setup you were fishing with it?
Yeah, definitely. So, let's see here. So the rod here, which is my absolute favorite cranking stick, turn that around there, is the Flatside special in the Orochi lineup.
Really? Your
Yeah,
favorite?
Yeah.
Why is
So,
that?
well, for throwing these guys, it's a little bit bigger bait.
Yeah.
So it's got some weight to it,
Mhm.
and I really like the way that this rod loads.
Oh, got it.
So you're able to cast it a little bit further,
Mhm.
and it is ultra sensitive,
Oh,
which is a
really?
huge deal for me.
Okay.
Having the sensitivity, fishing in 10 plus feet of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were fishing around rocks, a lot of trees.
Yep.
And so being able to detect, like, is that a bite? Is that a tree? Is that a
Right.
rock?
Yeah. How many
Oh.
times did you see me set the hook
Oh.
yesterday? Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But it's nice to have a sensitive rod that's, it's not a glass rod,
it's not.
right? It's a glass composite.
Right.
So you still have a little bit of that sensitivity in there, but it loads deep to hook those fish well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't think I've ever even fished that rod before.
Really?
I think I'm
Oh,
always
man.
in like a Valkyrie.
That's fair enough. Yeah. That's fair enough.
What reel and line are you fishing?
Definitely. So, Steez A is one of my favorites.
Okay.
Right. It's just kind of that all-around reel for me.
Yeah.
I get to do whatever I want with it. Can throw whatever I want with it,
Mhm.
up to a certain weight. But just cast that smaller bait, amazing.
Yeah, cast amazing.
Yeah, cast amazing. And then I would
What
say
gear ratio? I'm sorry.
7-1. I'm sorry.
7 to 1.
Yeah, 7-1
okay,
on
so
that guy.
faster.
Yeah, a little bit faster.
Well, it's funny. I talked to you that day.
Yeah.
I was like, "Yo, what? You're not fishing it on like a 5?" But you're like, "Oh, that's old school, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
Like new school, it's fast."
I
right?
think, well, and I have a problem with going way too fast.
Oh.
So if I just have a high-speed reel, it forces me to slow down.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'd say a lot of my setups are 8-to-1s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, even like some of my deep crank stuff.
Oh, wow.
I throw on 8 speeds.
Oh, okay, so faster.
Absolutely,
Interesting.
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
And then the line.
Line choice.
Would you say this is the most important part
I would, yeah.
of a setup?
yeah.
Is like the line, right?
It's something that you can play around with a lot.
Yep.
In regards to depths
Mm.
of your bait and where you're fishing. So, you know, we weren't fishing horribly crazy stuff in regards to cutting your line. So the FC Sniper, the Super FC Sniper 12-pound
Okay.
is kind of my go-to all around.
For that size of crank. right?
Cast the best,
Mhm.
right? You can feel a lot down there because line helps out with sensitivity, of
Right.
course.
Absolutely.
So that guy's gonna get you down into about that, I don't know, 15-foot range with that bait,
Okay.
comfortably. And then, like I said, castability is amazing with this line.
So why is line a big deal? Why couldn't I throw that Blitz Max on 20-pound? What
Yeah.
is that gonna make the crankbait do?
Yeah, so I mean, trying to throw it on 20-pound, you're gonna cast it about 20 yards. So
Got
you're
it.
gonna get a very small cast. And on a
Mhm.
bait like that, I want something to have a very long cast.
Yep.
And then sensitivity as well.
Oh, okay.
Right, so if you were to throw that on 20-pound, you're probably gonna feel the bottom,
Hmm.
but you're gonna have no idea what you're hitting,
Oh, interesting.
whether it's a rock, a tree, or a fish.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, lines size also helps with the bait running deeper or shallow, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like on the 12-pound, you're saying you're getting it down to 15.
Yeah, I'd say 12 is about 15 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's when you're saying playing it with line. You
Absolutely.
can play with like, oh, if I wanted it to run shallower, I could go
Right.
with maybe heavier line. If I
Yeah,
wanted
maybe you're
it to
gonna
run-
fish some thicker stuff shallower,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe
So
even
you want to.
deeper. You would
Yeah.
go even lighter, like
course.
10 pound.
I don't know if I'm
Right.
that crazy,
Yeah.
but yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy how like you probably don't think about that. You think on the pack it just says it gets down to this depth, but it doesn't tell you about line. And I think most
Yeah.
guys just think like one line will do it. But if you play with your lines, you can get it down even deeper
Absolutely.
or shallower,
Yeah.
which is pretty good.
Yep.
So we caught him on that crankbait, but then the sun kind of came up and we switched up to fishing the walls.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah, so later on in the day, that bite kind of died out, and I think that the bait went a little bit deeper than it
Mhm.
was in the morning. I think in the morning it was in about 10 foot, and we kind of slowly watched it move out into like 20 foot.
Yep.
And we had some good wind in the morning, which really helps with that bank bite,
Mm-hmm.
but then it all died.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It went away.
it was
Real
done.
fast.
Yeah, it was flat calm, and I was like, okay, what do we do when it gets flat calm and the sun's out? Go a little bit deeper.
Go deeper, right?
Right. So we went over to some bluff walls,
Mm-hmm.
and if you know me, this is my absolute
Yeah, that's
favorite
it,
bait.
dude.
Absolute favorite bait.
Ever since we
Um,
got him in, you've been catching them on that bait.
Dude, I was the biggest fan of the Big M and the 10XD,
Right, yeah.
but Blitz never had this.
It's
and so when they
insane.
came out with this, I was so excited, and I've caught so many fish on this bait.
So
Um,
speaking of those other two crankbaits that you talked about, what makes this one so different to be your favorite now?
I think because it dives so fast.
Fast, okay.
I think on a shallower cast,
Mhm.
or not a shallower cast, a shorter cast,
Hmm.
it'll run 18 feet
Oh wow.
on like a 60-foot cast.
Okay.
So you're not having to long line it to get it down there.
Got
And then
it.
it's very buoyant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we found that out
We
yesterday.
found that out quick.
Yeah.
You snap them off.
Yeah, break one off, you tie another one on, it floats right back
By
up.
the time you even finish tying
Yeah,
it
right.
up.
So I think when it's hitting rocks, you know, instead of it popping up a foot, you know, maybe it pops up 3 foot. So I think that could be a huge key to that guy.
Yeah. So what you said, I feel like, is super important, is getting down to the desired depth much quicker.
Right.
So if you're making 150-foot cast and you're trying to get down to 30 feet, I feel like with the traditional crankbait, out of the 150 feet, it might take, what, maybe 30 feet
Right, so
to
you're
get
only
down
getting,
there?
now you're only getting a 70-foot range.
Right, yeah,
Right.
it just cuts down so much quicker.
Yeah.
So with this getting down to the juice,
Mm-hmm.
right, the area that you want it to be much quicker, I feel like you're getting more out of your cast with this bait, right?
Absolutely.
So that's
Yeah.
the big deal with it.
Yeah.
And you talked about the 10XD. The 10XD has a very wide action,
It
and it
is.
rips your arm off.
It's horrible.
Where the Big M, when I fish the Big M, I'm like, I don't even feel like I ever got a crankbait on this
Right.
because you don't feel much because it's flashing. I feel like this is a great blend between both of them.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can definitely still feel it's down there, and there's
Right.
definitely some resistance, but it's not wearing your arm
Right,
out.
yeah.
It doesn't have that huge wobble.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, colors on this. You started with one color.
Yeah, so this is our newest color,
Yeah.
and I haven't gotten to play around with it a whole lot.
Mhm. That's so sick, right?
So sick, absolutely. Which one of my favorite colors,
Yeah.
and quite a few different baits. But I was looking at it, and I was looking at the water clarity,
Mhm.
and I looked at Jeff, and I was like, it's like, man, I really don't feel like this is the color that
Yeah.
I should be throwing right now. So I had picked up the chartreuse Wagasaki,
Mhm.
and I think within the first
Maybe 3 casts.
yeah 3
it was
casts I caught
ridiculous.
one, and I was like, okay, I
All
guess
right.
this is the one they want today.
What do you think that is? Was it because of the water, the clarity? If it was more stained, would you throw something like
It's
that?
tough to say. I know that none of us have seen a crankbait in 30 feet, so I have
Yeah,
no idea
unfortunately.
what any of these look like in 30 feet.
Right.
But with what the water clarity was, like I said, it was a little bit stained.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this guy is super natural.
Got
with
it.
Maybe like a lighter hint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a highlight into it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
in
makes sense.
30 feet. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a crazy switch. Like, switch, caught fish. I'm like, all right, that's the color.
instantly.
All right, keep that one in your
Yeah.
hands. So, that was good. I mean, it was interesting because obviously most people were fishing these bluff walls,
Mm-hmm.
right? And explain like these bluff walls to people because a lot of people probably don't have bluff walls like we have.
They're crazy bluff walls.
They're
here.
insane because
the rock
there's
is insane.
A specific lane that you have to hit, or your crankbait's in 60 feet,
You
or your
definitely saw
crankbait's
that
getting
with me
snagged in
yesterday.
5, right?
Yeah.
It's insane how like steep these banks are, but once you get it to that zone, what we were looking for with a 20 to 25 or so with a crankbait, you were getting those bites,
Yeah.
right? And so you would make a cast like, nope, I'm just wasting cast.
It's just wasting
'Cause
gas.
I'm hitting 60 foot, I can't even hit the bottom. Or you're like, oh, that's too shallow, I'm gonna snag. Snag.
Yeah.
So like those bluff walls were pretty intense, and I feel like most people, they don't throw a crankbait on them because it almost doesn't make sense.
Right.
Where they throw like a worm and they
Yeah.
work it down.
A
right?
jig.
Yeah,
Right.
something like that. So I felt like doing that with that crankbait gets the bait down to those fish because you can cover a lot of water. 'Cause, I mean, dude, it's hundreds and hundreds of yards that
Dude,
you
it
have to
was,
cover.
those walls are big.
Like you'd lose your mind throwing
Yeah.
a Cinco down it.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
it'd take you all day. But with that, you're able to cover water and find those active fish on those bluff walls, right? So I think that was definitely an eye opener. For me, I'm just like, I always fish a glide bait, just high on the wall. If I don't get bit, I'm like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's so much wall.
There's a
and
lot.
there's not a whole lot of lures that you can get down to the right depth, but fish fast. I mean, you could pick up like a heavy spinnerbait.
Or
but
an
I feel like
A- or
it's
an
not-
A-rig,
or an
maybe.
A-rig
Yeah,
or
we
something
talked
like
about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I feel like that deep crankbait is the deal on it.
It's pretty money, that's for sure. And it's like you said, it's something a lot of people don't do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I never see people fishing walls with crankbaits.
Absolutely
you know?
not, dude.
I'll see them fish it with like a swim bait or an
Mhm.
A-rig or like you said, a big spinner bait.
Yep.
But it's kind of just one of those out of the box things
Mhm.
that nobody really does. That's a lot of fun.
It is. Yeah.
It is like getting those bites in 30 feet after
Yeah.
like crushing rocks.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
It's so good, dude.
Yeah.
Now, what's the setup for this monstrosity of a crankbait?
Yeah, so it's definitely a big crankbait, and it weighs a lot. What does it weigh? It weighs.
Like an ounce and a quarter or something?
I don't know how to read this here.
Oh, it's Japanese. Yeah,
it's-
give it to
Yeah,
me.
what do you got there?
Where does it say? We are looking at almost 2 ounces.
Almost 2 ounces.
52 grams.
So that's a big bait.
That's a big crankbait.
That's a big crankbait. So you're gonna need a big rod for that. I truly think that there's only one rod to throw these on,
Okay.
and that is gonna be the Orochi launcher.
That's Griff's favorite rod.
This is Griff's 100%
loves that
favorite
rod
He
for
loves
deep
this
cranking.
rod. I don't think he ever talks about throwing a deep crank on another rod.
That's the deal right
Yeah,
there.
that's the deal.
But realistically, that's
yeah, it's a big rod.
It's an incredible rod.
And it's heavy,
Yeah.
right? Because, you know, you got a monstrosity on the end of this
Right.
thing. But it's super flexible,
Very.
right? This
Mhm.
rod is super, super flexible, so you get a great bend into it when you're
Mhm.
throwing it.
It's a 7-11.
7-11, yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
And it's rated
7-11.
up to about 2 ounces, so it handles the crankbait.
Yep, 1.9
really, really well.
actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
1.9. I'm off by a hair.
Yeah, yeah.
But it launches that crankbait. And you were making some casts where I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You're like almost spooling yourself.
Right.
And it's like a combination of the bait itself has the way that it's weighted. You were telling me about the ball that inside.
Yep.
It acts like a weight transfer system.
Yeah.
And then you got a rod like that. And then what reel were you fishing on? I know you were fishing a Z2020.
Z2020. I didn't have this guy with me, unfortunately.
Right, but it'd be
definitely wish I did. This
basically
to
the
me,
same thing.
This is the optimal choice
the
here.
Zillion TW.
The Zillion TW 1520 HD.
Yeah.
I think that this reel has a lot of torque.
Yeah.
Comes with the power handle.
Which is good.
Big line capacity. That's
Mhm.
another thing, is constantly checking your line.
Oh my god. How
on
many
this.
times did you retie yesterday?
I must have retied 20 times throwing this bait. And it's a huge thing because,
Yeah.
you know, right down there in 30 foot, your line is going to get cut.
Mm-hmm.
So constantly retying and having that line capacity in the reel is
Yeah.
a huge deal.
That's big, right?
Yeah, huge.
Because, I mean, you're going to be burning through line.
Absolutely.
And so being able to have line after a day of retying and going through rocks, and yeah, it can be a pain in the ass to keep retying and keep getting through the rocks, but if you're getting bites that other people aren't getting,
Right.
I think it's worth it.
Absolutely.
That's how I've always gone
Yeah,
through
absolutely.
it. Where I'm like, oh my god, I get 4 casts before I have to retie.
Yeah.
But then on that 5th cast, I'm like, oh, thank God I retied because I just caught a 6-pounder or
Right,
8
it
pounder
happens
or
so
whatever.
quick.
You know what I mean? So definitely having almost a swim bait size reel.
Yeah, I'd say a
something
swim
with
bait
good
size reel
gears
is
because,
necessary.
Dude, that crankbait, it's got power.
Yeah, big power.
And so if you're throwing it on like a normal size reel, like 100, 150, dude, you're destroying the gears on that. You
Horrible.
know?
You're going to ruin a reel.
Just like that.
Ruin
right?
it.
You
Ruin
don't
it.
have enough line on there, so you'll make a couple casts, retie, and you're like, oh my god, I'm spooling myself on the cast. I don't have any more line.
Ask me how I know this question, Jeff. I definitely talked with you about this, ruining a reel, trying to figure out how to throw this bait. So do yourself a favor. Get a good,
Yeah,
get a
please.
good big reel.
Please.
If you're going to throw it, have some fun with it, man.
What line? We're talking about line.
So this is a big thing for me.
Uh-oh.
It's very interesting because I throw it on 3 different line sizes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I do. I would say my number one is 14-pound FC
Okay.
Sniper fluorocarbon.
Yeah.
But I definitely play with line sizes again. People call me crazy for it, but I do throw this bait on 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, like if I'm fishing a hump or something that's
Mhm.
just out of the zone on
Yeah.
14, you know, I can bump down into the 12 and get me an extra 5 feet,
Oh wow.
which is huge.
Yep.
Or like, you know, like we were out fishing that nasty jagged rock.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you could definitely do it with 16
Yeah,
and
okay.
be a little bit safer.
Got it.
But there we were playing with different zones.
Right,
You know, we'd be in
exactly.
15 feet and then we'd be in 30 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that 14 is kind of your optimal size.
14.
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Which, to some guys, they're like, holy shit, there's no way. It almost weighs 2 ounces.
Right,
I've
throwing
got
on
a
14,
full-on swim bait
crazy.
reel. Like, you're
Right.
insane. But if you want the bait to get down to the desired depth, which, you know, the big thing about that crankbait was it's a 30-foot diver.
Right.
And most other crankbaits, they're hitting, you know, 22 to like 25.
Absolutely.
So to be able to get that crankbait just a little bit deeper into those
Absolutely.
fish that are in 30 feet, I'll do whatever to do just to do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's a crankbait on the market that on 14 pound you can get to 30 feet.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
then if you bump down into 12, you know,
Mhm.
maybe you can get down into the low 30s.
Right. Yeah.
Which is huge.
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 Yeah. Because it's the first crankbait to ever
Right.
do that.
Those fish are untouched with,
They've
with a
never
crankbait.
seen something
Absolutely.
like that. So definitely play with line.
Yep.
One thing I think is you're gonna break off.
It's bound to happen.
you, unless you're literally retying every 3 casts, you're gonna break off,
It's bound to happen.
right? And a lot of it's just you're breaking off on rock, and like we said, you break it off, it's a high float. By the
Yep,
time
comes
you
right back up.
you just sit down, wait, it's gonna come back up, and you can pick it up and retie it on. So it's not a huge deal. I think yesterday you might have lost maybe 1
Yeah, 1.
for like 5 hours of cranking some of the gnarliest rock in the world.
But I think I broke off 10 times maybe.
Right.
Right.
And yeah.
So 1 crankbait out of 10 breakoffs.
Right.
It's
And
a
I
great
think
ratio.
the one time you did break off was because it was just snagged.
Right.
Right? Because there's sometimes when you're coming over that rock and you kind of think like, is that a fish? And then you go to like do a light swing and nope.
I
Yeah, it was
definitely
just-
did that a couple times.
Just straight
yesterday.
rock and it floats back up.
Yes.
Pick it back up and you're fine.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. We appreciate you tuning in and watching today. Maybe something to try out this fall is mid and deep diving crankbaits. I think that you guys will get some bites that you might not normally get for an out of the box kind of bait. We'll see you on the next one.